Hello everyone, I'm majicDave and this is Sapiens. So it's been a month since the last video, and yeah, that was because we had a baby in the middle of it. His name's Aiden, and he's awesome. He's doing great. He came a little bit later than we expected, so I actually managed to get a couple of weeks work done before then. But I obviously haven't had a chance to actually get back and record this video, and I have actually now started to do a little bit more work again, so sort of getting back into the swing of things. But I've got quite a lot to show off. So I'm going to start with the new mods menu. Now I thought when I implemented mods that I would split it out into two categories. So normally you'd just have this game mods category. So basically you'd turn mods on and off app-wide, and then if you had different worlds that had different save games that had different collections of mods, you'd have to make sure that you matched up all the mods that you'd created the world with. Otherwise you're going to have some issues with sort of conflicts and things. So it can get a bit hard to manage. So I thought maybe what I would do is instead split it out. So we've got these game-wide mods that is you can turn on and off whenever you like. And so the mod creator assigns a category to their mod. So in this case, I've created this example that just turns the UI blue. So we can turn that on and hit apply. It'll reload, and we've got this mod installed. It also just adds this text here. So if I then load up a world, then the UI will be blue in here as well, because this is applying across the entire app. But for some mods, you don't want it to apply for the whole app. You only want it to apply per world. So let me just turn that blue off again. What it's actually doing when you hit apply is it's reloading the entire Lua state and all the different shaders and stuff. It all happens very quickly. It also needs to do that when you're loading up the world. So there's quite a few different things I've had to do to make all of that work, but it's all very seamless. So you don't have to sort of go into folders and add and remove things and all that, and then sort of restart your game. It all sort of happens automatically. So with world mods, how that works is these are actually copied across when you create the world, and they're stored alongside the world folder. So if I turn on flat terrain and hit apply, then when we go to create the world, we're actually going to see that this view here is using that mod. So it's loaded up into this view, and it's applied here, and then when we actually create it, it'll copy that mod across, zip it up and everything, and stick it in a directory, and now we've got this flat world. So I think this will be really good, for basically it's a bit of a problem if you create a world and then sort of mods get updated underneath you and that sort of thing, especially with Steam Workshop, because there's not really any versioning support in Steam Workshop, so you don't really have a lot of control about what happens. And so I thought it would be best to just sort of take the current snapshot of all the mods that you want for this world, copy them across, keep them tied into that directory. If you really wanted to, then you could go in and then manually update them, but I think that's quite a dangerous operation. So I'm quite happy to leave that as a manual thing that you can do if you want. So when I was thinking about how the sort of world mods and stuff would work, I also realized, with multiplayer, often mods are quite an issue there. You have to make sure that the client matches the server. If a client tried to connect to this world and it didn't have that flat world terrain mod loaded, then it would see a completely different world and everything would just explode, basically. So what I decided to do is actually have the server host the mods on an HTTP server, and then when a client connects, it can just download all the mod files that it needs. Now obviously there are security implications with this. My plan is that it'll throw up a big red warning, basically flashing saying, warning, you're about to download a bunch of viruses if you don't know what you're doing, because mods can do whatever they like, really, and I've decided there's no way that I can sandbox them, and if I do, then I really limit what the mods would be capable of. So I've decided that the best thing to do is just make it so that you need to be able to trust the server that you're connecting to, and to put up a big warning and a checkbox even, and say, yep, I understand, I trust this server, and I know that they could actually potentially be carrying something that could harm my computer. So yeah, it's a little bit dangerous, but it does, if you know what you're doing, then it's fine, and you just have to be a bit careful about what you connect to. If you connect to a modded server, you need to make sure that you trust the server operator, and that you trust the mod creators themselves too. But anyway, so if I just open up a web browser and just connect to this, you can see that this is the HTTP server that is actually running as I am loading this world. As you can see, there's some terrain data here that's used. That's just like some pre-generated data it can take a little while to generate, so I thought it'd be quicker just to download it, but we'll see. But then in here we've got a zipped up flat terrain mod, and so the client will just check whether it has any of these mods stored locally, and if not, then it will just download them. They're versioned, so we can ensure that everyone's got the same version. And yeah, it's all implemented and working. And yeah, if I exit out of that world, then the server shuts down. There's no server running. So yeah, obviously there are security implications, as I said, and I've still got some work to do to make just warn everyone that there are some dangers in all of this. But I think it's okay. I don't think I'm doing anything too outrageous. In general, if you install a mod, you are taking a risk anyway on any game. Any mod is potentially dangerous. It could have viruses or whatever. You just got to be careful. So for that server, I'm just using CivicWeb, which is it's like a Mongoose branch, if that means anything to anyone. But basically, it's an embedded HTTP server. I think that has a lot of benefits because there are already a couple of larger files that needed to be served up, and this way they can be served over HTTP, which is just that makes so much sense for what's happening here. So it doesn't clog up the pipes for the main game data. If someone's connecting and downloading a bunch of mods, it will use network bandwidth, but it's not going to cause too many issues for players that are online. So yeah, I have implemented Steam Workshop support all through this, so it's all sort of ready to go. So one thing that was kind of surprising to me when I was doing that was that you actually have to implement the uploading of mods and stuff yourself in the game. I sort of thought maybe they'd have a web interface for that or something. I don't know. It does sort of make sense now that I've sort of got into it. But yeah, so I had to actually add this button here. So this one here is one that I've got stored locally. And if I hit upload to Steam, it's got no ID associated with it, so we'll click that. That's done, and then we can upload it to Steam. Does all the stuff, updates the content, and my upstream speed is extremely slow, but that's not too bad. And it's done. Upload complete, and you can just do that whenever you want to do any kind of updates as the developer of the mod. I'll probably that button probably won't be visible by default. I'll sort of maybe add some other option somewhere you have to say that, it's like I am a mod developer, I want to be able to upload them. But yeah, once that's uploaded, you can then subscribe to it. If I go to one that is Steam, you can see it on the Steam page. It's all set up here, and you can subscribe to it, and it'll just download it, and then it will just show up in that list. So yeah, that was all relatively straightforward. There's probably a couple of days work and just all of the sort of Steam Workshop stuff. Obviously there's a lot of work in all of this, but as I said, I thought it was time to kind of just figure out how that'll work to get it all up and running. And yeah, I want basically, as soon as this goes out to alpha, I'm going to be sending it out to mod creators, and I want to just get lots and lots of mods and make all sorts of interesting, community content around this game, because it's just, it's so powerful, and it's, I'm pretty excited actually to see what everyone's going to do. I know that's a really cliche thing to say, but I genuinely am very excited about it. So okay, so that's sort of how mods are working in the game, and yeah, I'm quite happy with how that's working already, and I think there isn't too much more work to do there before that's all ready. So yeah, let me talk a bit about a few other things that I've done. So I'll just create a world here that's got these sort of a bit more dynamic than the default. We'll turn these up, turn those down. So scale is sort of, how big the continents are. Influence means that sort of the mountains are taller or, shorter. Features are sort of the smaller mountains and stuff. And so I'm making that scale smaller, which is actually making them tighter together, which makes them sort of, more likely to have cliffs and stuff. And especially if I turn up the influence, that makes them taller. So hopefully that sort of makes sense. It's quite hard to name these sorts of things, and I'll probably change them, but that's why I've changed this, to make a really dynamic world, probably more dynamic than I would like for gameplay, but probably more interesting to look at. So we'll see what we end up with. So yeah, I've worked on the rivers a bit more. This is quite a wide river valley here. If I go somewhere else, it's a bit narrower here. What have we got over here? Here's a much more narrow river. I've changed the kind of shape. I've made it a little bit less. They were quite sort of linear before, but now we've got these sort of nice curves and stuff. I've changed the way that sort of climate works a little bit so that there's some more interesting kind of variations between biomes. And yeah, all of the biome assignment, all of the loading up of all these trees and everything is now using the new CMod based system. So it's all written in C instead of Lua, which is making it super quick. And it means that I can have more trees. I've got sort of denser forests and things, which is something I've always kind of trying to strive for. So there's still limits, but this is 1060 graphics card here, and it's running smoothly. It's not dropping any frames. So I changed the way that biomes worked. Before they were per climate. So this green area here was a single biome type, and it was hard to get variety within it. I just couldn't figure out how to classify things in a way that made sense. So the way that I've solved that problem is to use tags instead. And I thought this was going to be really good for mods. So a mod can introduce new tags and look, or it can look at existing tags. It can look at the vanilla tags that I've assigned, or it can look for other tags in case other mods have been installed that add other biomes and stuff. So up in the top right, you can see that this area here is temperate, cold winter, medium forest, birch, and conifers. So it's got pine trees, it's got birch trees, and it's got, because of the sort of temperate and cold winter tags, it's assigned a certain type of grass. If we go over here, maybe we've got a medium forest, just coniferous. There's no birch trees in this little patch here. And then maybe up here we've got what is different here, dry summer, and this is a sparse forest. It assigns mixtures of tags that sort of vary across the landscape, and so you get this really organic kind of increases in density where this is tagged dense forest, so it's got more trees, but then you can have dense forests that have sort of mixtures of different kinds of trees. And yeah, it's working really well. I think it's gonna work great, and I think it's particularly for mods that these tags are just gonna work really well. There's still work to do, so I think this needs to be tagged with river down here, so that then it would probably replace the sand with gravel or something. There's you can have different kinds of rivers. There's so much potential for lots of interesting different kind of ways of assigning biomes and what sort of types of plants and animals and stuff end up there. Okay, so another thing that I worked on was the particle system. So I'll just lead this tribe here and get them building a campfire. Or maybe get, you can be assigned fire lighting so we can get that going, and we'll just speed it up so they can go and gather their things. So I was sort of looking at how I was doing particles before. It was always a bit of a problem and it needed some work, and I've been putting it off. But yeah, it's now all using the kind of new C-based mod system, and I've basically rewritten it all using that. I should say the mod kind of infrastructure and stuff is all it's all on GitHub, and I'll put the link in the description. So if you want to sort of go check it out, see how it all works, you can do that. Obviously you can't really test it at the moment because you don't have the game, and it's really not particularly useful for anything, but it's all there. I thought I'd make it public and sort of get my head in the right space, that this is public code that people are going to use to make their own mods and stuff. So yeah, these are the new particles. We've got little sparks, we've got fire, we've got smoke drifting around. The smoke is actually lit by the fire. And yeah, it's sort of an improvement across the board. The performance is, I don't know. I mean, when I profiled having 30 campfires before with the old system, and it was using 70% of a CPU core, just updating all the particles. and that was just not going to be any good. So that was my Lua-based particle system. Whereas now with the C system, that same code was using roughly 1% of the CPU to do that same work. So that, yeah, the particles are super quick, they're flexible, they can be modded, and yeah, I'm basically, I think the particle system's mostly there now. Let me just make it daytime as well. So these particles are also lit by the sun. They've got shadows cast on them. There you go, I can see some shadows getting cast from the trees. But as always, lots and lots and lots of things to do on my to-do list, and it's just feeling really kind of fast and performant and ready for modders, and that's sort of what's changed in the last couple of weeks. And I don't know what I'll be working on next. I think actually I'm quite keen to fix a few bugs to do with sort of the people with their pathfinding and stuff. I was aiming to basically have it ready for alpha by the end of this year, and I don't think that's quite going to happen. I'm kind of close, but it might be worth just waiting a little bit longer before I start sending it out to the first alpha testers early next year. But before I can do that, I really need to have a bit more gameplay, a little bit more sort of content. So yeah, I think probably another month or two of just sort of bug fixing and tidying up loose ends, and then another month or two of just like solid kind of content additions. That's sort of the plan. But yeah, it'll be another month before the next video probably, because I'm not working at full capacity with the newborn and everything. But yeah, hopefully it won't be too long, and we'll catch you then. Cheers.